The Bible Treasury. A monthly magazine of papers on scriptural subjects. Volume 19, Article 1, Part 74 of 93, 1892 and 1893. The Early Chapters of Genesis. By William Kelly. Genesis 10 verse 22. The immediate descendants of Shem are next enumerated, it would seem in the order of birth, as Arpachshad, the progenitor of the chosen line, stands in the third place, neither first nor last, either of which might be done as elsewhere for special reasons. The sons of Shem, Elam, and Asshur, and Arpachshad, and Lud, and Aram, verse 22. Elam, the first apparently in natural order, gave his name to that part of Khuzestan, which the Greeks and Romans called Elima, which had of old Shushan for its capital, of which we hear so much in the book of Esther, Esther 1 verses 2 and 5, Esther 2 verses 3, 5 and 8, Esther 3 verse 15, Esther 4 verse 16, Esther 8 verses 14 and 15, Esther 9 verses 11, 15 and 18, as also in Nehemiah 1 verse 1. There has been no little debate among men of learning on the precise locality, some contending, as Dean Vincent, ANCCOMM 1, 439, for Schuster on the Pasidagres or Corinne, others for Susan a good deal to the east of Schuster. But Mr. Loftus, following Sir W. F. Williams, appears to have set the question at rest in favor of Shush, to the northwest of Schuster, where only an immense mound of ruins remains of the once magnificent fortress and palace of the Persian monarchs, possessed before that by the king of Babylon, as Daniel 8 verse 2 attests. There it was that the prophet saw the vision of the Persian ram, and the Greek or Macedonian he-goat, though some will have it that the prophet was only there in vision. It is known that Nabopolassar, father of Nebuchadnezzar, seized the land of Elam or Sujanna, which succumbed afterwards to Cyrus, and Susa or Shushan became the regular residence of the Persian monarch for a part of the year. There is no reason to doubt that the excavations made in our day lay bare the plan, with certain remains of the palaces, indicating a structure, with its dependent buildings, which occupied a square of 1,000 feet each way, in a massive style of architecture with fluted columns, and those in the outer groups with bases like an inverted lily, which Shushan means. In the days of Abraham, we bear of Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, with his 3 allies coming 2,000 miles to punish his vassal kings in the Vale of Siddim, a plain proof of early power, though signally chastised by the father of the faithful. It seems that subsequently the Hamites, who earlier still rose to power in the east as well as southwest, gave the name of Sissim to this district, as Herodotus, verse 49, and Strabo let us know. They were Kassii and Cushites. But it is of importance to mention that Elam joined the Medes to overthrow Babylon, as we see predicted in Isaiah 21 verse 2, the latter a Japhetic race, as the former was of Shem. In Jerusalem's day yet to come Elam will figure with its confederates against Jerusalem. For the mysterious succession here, as in Isaiah 14, not applying to the past, looks on to the future when the last Shebna shall give way to the antitypical Eliakim, whom God has appointed. Yet we know also from the assured word of prophecy, that however ravaged in the past, Ezekiel 32 verses 24 and 25, and Jeremiah 49 verses 34 and 38, Elam will have its captivity brought again in the latter days according to Jeremiah 49 verse 39. On Asshur, there is the less motive for dilating, as every reader of scriptural history knows how splendid a part their race played in the comparatively early history of the world when the struggle for predominance seemed to lie between Assyria and Egypt. Of this we find authentic accounts in the Old Testament, especially when both came into collision, the Assyrian especially, with the chosen people in its decay through idolatry, sweeping away the kingdom of Israel, and menacing that of Judah. But the awful check given to Sennacherib in the height of his scornful pride soon proved no real opportunity to Egypt, for Babylon that joined in destroying Nineveh was destined of God to be the head of power, as all know according to God's word. Here again, shall mercy triumph over judgment, and Isaiah 19 is expressed that Indiana the day of messianic power and glory Israel shall be the third with Egypt and with Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the earth. We need not speak of Israel but may say that this was never the case with Egypt and with Assyria in the past. Both wrought innumerable evils for man, both sinned shamelessly against God. But what cannot, will not, mercy work on God's part, even for the enemies of his guilty and chastised people? What a monument will not the trio be in that day? Of Arpachshad we may say still less, for he leads directly down to the time of promise, about which the Old Testament is almost wholly occupied. Lud is the next son of Shem, and there is the more need of care, as there was another race of similar name which had its seat in Africa, the first named of the Mizraim or Egyptian peoples, of whom we have spoken, Genesis 10 verse 13. There was thus Ludim of Ham, as well as of Shem. Josephus, Ant 1, A4, was justified in stating that the latter race settled in Asia Minor, the Lydians. Herodotus, 1, 7, says indeed that the Maiwans or early dwellers in the far from definite land called Lydia, for its extent changed greatly from time to time, afterwards adopted the name of Lydians, being in fact as he thought the same people. But this was a mistake. Even Strabo, 1214, recognizes on ancient testimony, that they were distinct races, as Niebuhr, History of Rome, 1, 32, and others in modern times are convinced. The Maiwans were the early Japhetic settlers whom the Shemitic Lydians conquered. Indeed that careful historian, Dionysius, 1, 30, notices that the Lydians had nothing in common with their Pelasgian predecessors. It can hardly be doubted that Jeremiah 46 verse 9 and Ezekiel 27 verse 10, Ezekiel 30 verse 5, refers to the African race, perhaps Isaiah 66 verse 19, though this be not so certain. But they join in the great catastrophe of that day. Of Aram, we shall speak in considering verse 23.